Hello and welcome back to Read Becca for a very chilly weekly catch up on everything I read, everything I'm currently reading, and everything I'm looking forward to reading, as well as a little random chat. The books that I read this week, I finished up my very first tome of the year. I'm so excited. Fellowship Point by Elliott Dark, and I really enjoyed this book. It is chunky, but I was gripped reading this. And not because it's very plotty or action forward. This is a super mundane book, and it's about two octogenarian ladies who have spent their whole lives together as these close friends, but are incredibly different people. So this is a mundane story about their lives. It has some, big moments throughout. Over 80 years, of course, you're going to have major losses and grief, loves and heartbreaks. Those sort of things come up. Major happenings in the world come up as almost background. But every time something like that happens, life moves on. These two women have grown up with the same background, the same upbringing, run in the same circles through their whole lives, and yet they are complete opposites. And a lot of this book is exploring how do they diverge in this way. Agnes is fiercely independent. She is an author who has become mostly famous for children's works, the When Nan series about character Nan, who is kind of held up as an early example of feminism in children's work, looking at a girl who can behave outside of gender norms in her time. And she also very secretively and pseudonymously wrote a series of adult novels following several women in Philadelphia. And similarly, looking at the variety of women who exist and how women do not just fit one mold. And so I think that's our thread into the real plot of this story and the meat of it. And on the flip side, her friend Polly is our other main character. And Polly has been a housewife her whole life. She has subsumed herself to living for her philosophy professor husband, who is now aging and has reached retirement, been a bit pushed out when he doesn't want to be, unwilling to accept his mind going. She has lived her whole life for her children, and she's made so many choices that hid herself, which is totally contrary to what Agnes would ever do. So the dynamic of these two is so fantastic because they feel like such real people. You can totally get the sense of their relationship being close while they are very often in disagreement. We have long stretches of this novel where one of them will bring up a topic that the other doesn't really want to deal with, and it will just disappear for months. And I think that is what's most effective about this, is because when we have big things happen, or when they have disagreements here, it just sort of fades away, because that's the way that life really happens, where big things occur and you can't always deal with them. It's not always a massive blow up that alters the course of our lives. We do still have to go about our day to day, and this focuses on that aspect. I totally love that. So having the mundane sense throughout this just is what endeared it to me. So ostensibly the plot of this is that we're talking about Fellowship Point as a physical place, a little jut of land out into the water that was originally founded as an association by Quakers, a handful of Quakers, for a few people to own houses there and conserve the land there. And we learn more and more about the background of that. We do get a brief chapter that is actually focused on that founding at the time. And I found that really interesting and funny a bit, because we see these several men having high and lofty ideals and saying they're building sort of this Quaker utopia that is equalitarian or egalitarian. And yet then they immediately create a class structure where they have basically different housing for the owners versus the servants. And so I thought that was a funny nod a little bit to just the obtuseness of their plan. However, I felt like that wasn't really the point of the book. It's so sold in the marketing, but the idea of this jut of land and them thinking through at the end of their lives what they want to happen to it going forward, and thinking about the effect of our life, or a place being more than what they can control, because the main catalyst for their thinking about Fellowship Point and what should happen with it is that someone has shown up who wants to develop it. And it is somewhat of a natural conservation point. They have species there that are rare, And Agnes feels very strongly about this. Polly, of course, wants to defer to others as to her type at the start of the book. And over the course of this novel, we are following several years in their lives. We're running from early 2000 all the way through, at the very end, we sort of rushed to 2008. But in that sort of current timeline, we're developing how they're processing this over those years as their health is falling down, as they're having increasing difficulties in their lives, and the happenings in the community that are going on that are affecting the point. We also are jumping back and seeing the foundations of how they came to be the people who would make these sort of decisions, and how they came to feel the way they do on this topic about the place that they're so connected to, by jumping back to a couple of points, I think in the 1930s, when they were very young, their first loves, that sort of thing. And then mainly the 1960s, when they're fully adults, when they are making decisions about who they want to be and forming as people very much, and have some of the major happenings in their life that truly shaped them. So we're getting sort of a full arc through these lengthy lives that creates them as whole people. So I just loved that. And as I said, it always does focus on the day-to-day and the life moving forward rather than these big happenings. I don't feel that the fellowship point ever actually became the main story. It's more of a vehicle to show us the character of these ladies. So I really loved all of that. There's also sort of this element of a publisher's assistant who got into it because she wanted to be involved in publishing for Agnes. And so we do get some perspective of her, and she is a great outside perspective into these two women. So we do get perspective chapters from her, but to do with what I was talking about earlier, at the beginning of the book, we get one chapter from her, and then she just sort of disappears for a lengthy portion of the book. And then she is folded back in to show us a big piece of what happened. And a huge part of that is told through diaries and journals, letters. We get a lot of mixed media telling through here, and I quite enjoyed that. So the writing perspective really gave me something to grasp onto as feeling like this really could have happened, because we have this history of letters between people, of diaries written in the 60s from someone's life, and I felt like that added tangibility. The thing I really didn't like about this, so I don't want to degrade it, because this was such a wonderful reading experience. I just couldn't consume this enough. It felt like I just wanted to read it. I loved the characters so very much. However, there were some authorial choices that just soured it for me, because they were overly coincidental and very trite, and it felt like what to me was a really good, feel-good story with some realism to it turned into the author trying to deliver a feel-good story that was super sentimental and saccharine and unbelievable. And I didn't like that. It was a turn to a different type of feel-good story, and it cheapened the book for me. So I really disliked that. There was a couple authorial choices, but I mean, this was such a great read that I just didn't want that there, because it could have been like this top shelf story, and then it was really kind of pulled down by those decisions. But it was still a very, very good book with very, very good characters and wonderful writing and wonderful themes. And so I overall enjoyed this so much, but it just got knocked down a little bit by a couple of decisions. So I can't ramble on anymore about this one. I loved it. I thought it was great, and I highly recommend it. And it made me really think I need to jump into some more mundane old lady books for sure. So that is going to be something I'm going to be on the lookout for in my near future. So then I read an ebook. I know I'm not supposed to be getting any new library books. This was not new. It was the last ebook I had out. I borrowed it around Christmas time, I think. When I was grabbing Saga, I spotted it on Hoopla, and it is Cook Like Your Ancestors by Mariah-Rose. And I really enjoyed this, though it was perhaps too short for my liking. It is a cookbook. It's a graphic cookbook. The art is absolutely stunning, and it has a focus, as to the title, it has a focus on cooking with an ancestral lens, where we think about the diversity of cooking around the world and be adaptable to different conditions that people are cooking in, different equipment that they may or may not have access to. So I liked that it had a big sort of preamble about the general flexibility of cooking and how to think about measurements when you don't have measuring cups, how to think about being adaptable to local and seasonal produce. And then we dive into the actual recipes. And I really liked that format because the recipes are laid out with sort of the place they're from, a person who was inspired by someone in their life. And these are specifically looking at different world traditions in cooking and trying to make them more flexible. And then they have absolutely gorgeous art, as well as, it looks like, I haven't executed any yet, but really easy to follow recipes. So I feel like this could be geared toward maybe a younger, like teen audience, but it was not explicitly like shelved as YA or anything, but this does seem a little on the simple side and a little short. But I really enjoyed it. I thought the art was lovely, everything was formatted really, really well, and it seemed like a great, great cookbook. So I will be looking forward to trying some of the recipes that I took pictures of to save for later. So then onto the stuff I am currently reading. I have John Wyndham's Day of the Triffids. I'm about halfway through that one. I am just getting into the Best of World SF Volume 3. Started this as a very, very slow buddy read, and then I think, to the old lady comment I said earlier, I think I'm going to try to start As We Are Now by May Sarton this week, probably. It's pretty short. Deviating from my TBR already, but I don't think I will have trouble finishing my TBR. Stuff I've been watching has been not very exciting. I did watch a movie that I'm trying really hard to watch more movies this year. For some reason in my mind, like I tend to go toward series because they're shorter episodes than a full movie, and I feel like a movie is super long for me to pay attention to a whole movie. But then I go watch, 2 or 3 hours of episodes of a show maybe, and so I need to not do that. I need to focus and knock out some movies because I have a backlog of a lot of movies I've really wanted to see. So I watched Emily the Criminal, mainly just for Aubrey Plaza. I really love Aubrey Plaza, and so I enjoyed it for that. It was not a standout as a movie, but her performance was great. I like the concept. She's sort of stuck in a wage slave position because she has a felony for an assault and just cannot get her foot in the door in any interviews for a job that's going to pay her bills. She has massive student loan debt, and so she's really struggling with that, and she winds up finding her way into something slightly illegal. And that's the way it goes a little further along the way. So I enjoyed the performance. Wasn't a standout. I probably will not remember it in too long, but I do like to watch everything that Aubrey Plaza does. My week this week has been a month, it feels like. I had sort of, big things happen at work that were not, like, they were big, it was major, but didn't really cause any sort of massive problem. So it shouldn't have been that big of a deal, but it meant a huge amount of time and energy went toward work for my whole week. And I'm very thankful for it's a 3-day holiday weekend in the US right now. And it is very frigidly cold. I'm sure all of us in the US are being hit by an Arctic blast right now, and it is just so chillingly cold. I woke up this morning, it was -7 Fahrenheit, and it's almost lunchtime now and it's still below 0. So my windows have ice all around them in the interior because I desperately need new windows. I replaced the really bad ones on the other side of the house. This side needs to happen, but I need to recoup from redoing my kitchen first. And hopefully I'll be able to do the windows before the end of this year. We will see. But that it being frigid and cold is nice maybe because I don't want to go out. I'm just hunkered down at home. I have nothing I have to do. I'm not going to go risk driving through the ice, and there's a slight snow, a little bit of dusting snow out. I'm not going to go through that to go out anywhere. Just gonna stay at home, be cozy, and read. So that is giving me a nice mental break from after my week this week. So that all I think is it for me for this week. It's been pretty quiet and good this weekend. Been reading, watching dumb stuff. I plan to try and watch another movie this weekend, and it's TBR-a-thon, so I did manage to get in reading along with some of the TBR-a-thon sprints last night. That was nice. I keep missing catching them, but there are sprints going on like all of the time, so if you want to participate in those, go check out the TBR-a-thon resources. And I think that's it for my week. Not too much to talk about, but my reading has been very good still. A little bit of a slowdown. I've been trying to give myself more breathing time, and I've been overly distracted this week because everything that was going on work-wise, my brain kept getting overloaded, and I would find myself just wandering back and forth trying to remember what I was doing. So So hopefully we're gonna give my brain a break this week, veg out a little bit and reset. Oh, and I am sort of participating in mid-month book bash. I decided not to vlog though. I need to put my filming energy toward finishing up my end of year content stuff. I have it all pretty much, like I've got the information I need to be able to film because there was an unusual amount for me of prep work for that stuff. I don't usually do a ton of prep for my videos. But having to have like numbers to look back on my goals requires a little bit of prep, having to really dig through lists of what I read to narrow things down for my favorites is really important. So I do have my nonfiction already filmed, edited, and ready to go up this week. So that will definitely be coming. But the other stuff, I'm not sure. I still have to film a lot of it. So I think that's it for me this week. Thank you all so very much for watching, and I hope you stay warm and safe wherever you are.